me. It's a boring story if it's about me.
I don't think so, because you were working in the NBA, also you were scouting with the Saboniu. Can you remind us that story?
You know, I'm looking forward to meeting him. I don't know if he'll remember me, but yeah, for years when I was with the Trailblazers, one of my jobs was to travel to Spain and watch him play, to determine how healthy he was and whether, you know, one day he might come to the NBA, and try to talk to him a little bit. And every year I would come back and say, whatever we do, don't trade him. You know, hold on to him. If he plays in the NBA, he should play for Portland. And I'm glad that he did.
And how he was like a player in Spain when you?
Well, he was such a good player, but he was still injured in some ways, and he wasn't, you know, as mobile as he ended up being a little bit more so in the NBA. But he was so smart. He couldn't jump real high, but he would just tap the ball in the air and then grab it sometimes to get rebounds. And he just, you know, his basketball intelligence was so much greater than most players. But he was just starting to, I think, feel better physically, you know, to where he thought he could play in the NBA. You know, my first impression was he didn't want to try the NBA until he knew he could be physically able to play well. So I could feel for him. I knew we wanted him to play, but you know, he didn't want to do it unless he knew he could go out there and play well.
Had you a possibility to meet Saboniu after that?
You know, the year he came to Portland was the year I stopped working for the Trailblazers. I was living in Portland for part of that year before I went to Philadelphia as the GM. But I never connected with him. But his first year in the NBA, I was still in Portland for most of that winter, but we never crossed paths.
So you was in the NBA, you drafted Allen Iverson, and now you're working in such a small country like Kosovo. Can I ask you how you took this offer to coach Kosovo?
Well, you know, last year I was coaching a club team in Turkey after spending a lot of years in college basketball. And just out of nowhere, I got a message saying, would you be interested in the national team of Kosovo? They're looking for a coach. And I contacted the federation, and it just so happened the president was coming to Turkey for a little vacation. So we met, and I thought it would be interesting. I had an experience helping coach the Venezuelan national team years ago, and I enjoyed that. The idea of being with a group of players that were representing a country was unique to me.
Do you remember a game against Lithuania?
I do, in Caracas. I do. You remember that?
Yeah.
The finish was a little crazy, yeah.
Yes, and even in Venezuela there are some talks that maybe Lithuania after lost by
Nigeria. Yeah, I didn't believe that. I think the only the real story was the fact that, you know, the Venezuelans are proud and try to score on them after you've won the game, you know, not realizing that these events, every point counts. So I think it was more a misunderstanding that Lithuania was playing the rules, and the Venezuelans were thinking, you know, don't try to embarrass us by scoring more points if you're going to win the game. But that's what you have to do in these kind of competitions. But yeah, I do remember that game.
So and now with Kosovo, you won 3 qualification games against Estonia and against Macedonia, pretty good teams. How important was to Kosovo to win that games and to go to qualification?
Yeah, no, it was tremendous. It was tremendous. You know, the club had never won a game in FIBA competition against another national team. So to beat Macedonia here was a first. And then to have the chance in the game against Estonia to qualify was, you know, was really special. So, you know, it's the players, and they played with a lot of pride, and you know, those two teams are not like the teams in Pool C. It's a completely different group right now that we're playing against. So, you know, this is going to be much tougher to compete against these teams.
Did you saw Lithuania national team?
In Eurobasket, you know, we know it's a different group of players, but yeah, I mean, Lithuania always has terrific players. They're always smart players. They all can shoot. They're good. They're good. They're deep. We know how hard it's going to be. Unfortunately, we lost one of our best players. Arian Castrati got hurt 2 nights ago in his last game for Ljubljana. So that really hurts us because he's a guy that would play 30 minutes for sure, and he's probably our best all-round player. So that really set us back. But the atmosphere should be exciting in here. As you see, it's a small arena, and fans will be excited to just be part of this and to host, a team with such a reputation like this.
What do you think about the overall situation in Europe in basketball? Because the Lithuania team is coming to Kosovo without the NBA players, without EuroLeague players, like the 10 best players staying home.
I don't know if it's politically correct to be critical of something we're proud to be part of, whether it's playing a game in November or whatever. But I don't think it's the best way for national teams to compete, because it shouldn't be something where the best players can't be part of it if they choose to be. And also for a team that isn't as strong, it's very difficult to prepare to play a really good team in 3 days. It's just very hard. I'm never comfortable getting ready for a game unless I have about a month. So to play in 3 days, it's really hard. It's really hard. And the other thing is, for instance, our schedule, we play 1 game and then 3 on the road. So in February, we'll play games on the road. The people of Pristina and Kosovo won't even see the team. So it's not as if, this is, the next time after this game on Friday, I'll see you is the end of June. Yeah. So I thought one of the reasons to do this was to have like a, for the nations to have, a feel for their national team for more of the year instead of just during the summer months. But it's hard to do that if you don't play at least 1 game at home in each of the windows. So I think it's a tough situation for good teams that have players in EuroLeague or the NBA, and for even teams that aren't as strong that could be full, but not really fully prepared the way you'd like to be.
How it is important for Kosovo to play against such a team as Lithuania?
Yeah, no, I think the fact that Kosovo is part of the final 32 teams in Europe is just tremendous for basketball here. The pride that the people have when we won that game against Estonia, realizing that, wait, we're continuing on. It's very important. It's very important for the Basketball Federation here. They've got to try to grow the game. They don't have young players that are developing into, competitive enough players to be able to win games against other national teams. They've got to get basketball up to speed, have more kids playing and more kids, aspiring to be able to play in college somewhere, go to the United States, develop, become players that are able to play outside of the Kosovo League in a better league. Right now, Dardan Berisha can play outside Kosovo. Lee Shoshi has the potential, I think, to play outside of Kosovo. For most of these players, the only basketball they can play is in the Kosovo League, and it's hard. The league isn't, it struggles to attract good players, to pay players. So for it to grow, you need players good enough to get jobs outside of Kosovo and develop, and and for that to be what younger players aspire to. They have to aspire to more than just play here. They have to aspire to play in the United States, to play in other countries, to play in more competitive basketball environments.
What did you set for your players? Because it's going to be a tough game mentally, I believe, for Kosovo.
Yeah, well, we've only been together for 3 days, starting to prepare for this. But you know, we're going to have to play, you know, a near perfect game. You know, we know that they have a lot of good players. We have to play good basketball to have a chance. It's that simple. We've got two good guards. Scott Bamforth and Darden Breach are good guards, and they both will have to get shots and make a lot of shots, you know, for us to be able to score enough points. And you know, a lot of times how well those guys will play will determine whether we can hang in the game, because they have to score. The 2 games we won back in August, you know, Darden had great games. So, you know, we need him to score. And Scott's capable as well of scoring. So, you know, we need those 2 guys to score. And then, again, in the games we won, especially Estonia, we had more people contribute. Fisnik Rugova contributed. Toshi contributed. Ariane Kastrati contributed. You know, we had other people come in. Rana Rugova helped us out a little bit. Leo helped us out. So, I mean, you know, those 2 main guards have got to have good games, but we also need some other guys to make some positive contributions.
Do you have a few tricks in your pocket?
I'm not very tricky. No, I'd rather have tricky players than be a tricky coach.
Thank you.